Xi Fangping is a story from the collection Strange Stories from a Chinese studio written by the Qing Dynasty novelist Pu Songling. This story portrays the glorious image of Xi Fangping, a brave avenger, and through his tortuous and challenging path of struggle, reveals the darkness of feudal society. It is said that Xi Fangping was a native of Dong'an County. His father was named Xi Lian, a straightforward and honest man. He had a grudge with a wealthy fellow villager surnamed Yang. Yang died first, and after a few years, Xi Lian fell seriously ill and was on his deathbed. He said to those round him, "Yang has bribed the underworld officials to come and torment me." In an instant, his whole body swelled and he let out a few cries before passing away. Xi Fangping was heartbroken witnessing his father's tragic death. He couldn't even eat, saying, "My father was honest and virtuous, a simple man, and today he's been tormented by evil spirits. I must go to the underworld to seek justice for my father." From that point on, he stopped speaking and seemed to be in a dazed state, sometimes sitting still and sometimes standing vacantly, as if afflicted with madness. In reality, his soul had left his body. Xi Fangping felt disoriented as he left home and had no idea where to go. Whenever he encountered passers-by, he inquired about the direction to the county seat. He soon arrived in the city, where he learned that his father had been imprisoned. He rushed to the prison to visit, and from a distance, he saw his father lying under the eaves, his appearance marred by torture. When Xi Lian caught sight of his son, tears streamed down his face. He said, "The jailers in the prison have all been bribed by Yang, beating me day and night. Both my legs are crippled." Xi Fangping's fury surged upon hearing this, and he cursed the jailers, saying, "My father might have been guilty, but there are laws to govern. How can you wretches manipulate him at will?" He left the prison, wrote a petition, and burst into the Yamen during the city god's early morning court session, loudly proclaiming his grievances and presenting the petition. Fearing the consequences, Yang used money to grease the wheels and finally appeared in court to face Xi Fangping. The city god, having taken the bribe, declared Xi Fangping's accusations and found it unreasonable, refusing to accept his petition. With nowhere to vent his grievances, Xi Fangping embarked on a journey that took him over 100 miles to the prefectural capital. He lodged a complaint against the jailer's abuse of power to the county magistrate. The process was delayed for half a month before the trial commenced. The county magistrate, in a fit of rage, subjected Xi Fangping to a severe beating and sent the petition back to the city god for re-examination. Returning to the county, Xi Fangping suffered various forms of torture and accumulated boundless grievances. Afraid that he would lodge another complaint, the city god's men escorted him back home. However, Xi Fangping refused to step through his own doorway. He secretly visited the Yama's palace to accuse the county magistrate and city god of corruption and injustice. Yama immediately ordered the county magistrate and city god to face Xi Fangping. The corrupt officials sought to appease Xi Fangping through their trusted confidants, offering him 1,000 taels of silver. Xi Fangping paid no attention. A few days later, the innkeeper warned him, "Sir, you're being too stubborn. The official offered you reconciliation, yet you remain obstinate. Now I hear he has presented gifts to Yama himself. Things might not end well." Xi Fangping dismissed it as hearsay and wasn't overly concerned. Shortly after, a bailiff arrived to summon him for trial. Upon entering the courtroom, Xi Fangping saw Yama's furious expression and anticipated brutal punishment. However, Yama showed no anger, telling Xi Fangping, "You truly are a dutiful son. I've already cleared your father's name of any wrongdoing. He's been reborn in a wealthy family and no longer needs your cries for justice. Now, I'll send you back home, granting you a fortune and a long life. Shouldn't that satisfy you?" He recorded these matters in the Book of Life and Death, sealed it with an official stamp, and allowed Xi Fangping to inspect it. After thanking Yama, Xi Fangping left the courtroom. Accompanied by the bailiffs, he walked out of the north gate, pointing him in the direction of his home. The bailiffs turned and left. Xi Fangping pondered that the darkness within the Yama's court surpassed that of the mortal realm. He regretted not having a connection to Jade Emperor, the ruler of heaven. Legend said that Guangku Erlang, a divine guardian, was a relative of the Jade Emperor, a clever and just deity. If Xi Fangping could reach him, his grievances might find resolution. Delighted that the bailiffs had left, Xi Fangping turned and ran southward. He was in a hurry, and as he dashed forward, the bailiffs pursued him, saying, "Yama suspects you won't return." Seems he was right. They caught up with him and tried to take him back, but he resisted and ran back to Yama's court. Xi Fangping thought Yama would be furious, expecting even more brutal punishment. To his surprise, Yama showed no anger at all. Yama told Xi Fangping, "You are indeed a devoted son. I've already rectified your father's injustice. He has been reborn in a prosperous family. You need not cry out for justice anymore. I'll send you back and bestow upon you wealth and 100 years of life. Shouldn't that satisfy you?" Yama recorded this in the Book of Life and Death, stamped it with an official seal, and allowed Xi Fangping to review it personally. Xi Fangping thanked Yama and left the courtroom. As they walked out together, the bailiffs grumbled, "You cunning fellow. With your back and forth actions, we had to run back and forth, exhausting ourselves. If you dare to do this again, we'll throw you into the grinder and crush you to dust." Furious, Xi Fangping retorted, "You wicked spirits. What are you up to? I can withstand knives and saws, but I won't endure insults. Please go back and ask Yama if he wants me to return home. Why should you be bothered to escort me?" With that, he turned back. Afraid, the bailiffs begged him to come back. Xi Fangping deliberately walked slowly, halting after a few steps, resting by the side of the road. Although the bailiffs were annoyed, they didn't dare to complain anymore. After about half a day's journey, he arrived at a village. The gate of a house was half open, and the constables invited Xi Fangping to sit down and rest. Xi Fangping sat down on the doorstep. Seizing an unguarded moment, the constables pushed him into the house. After his initial fright subsided, Xi Fangping looked at himself and realized he had been reborn as an infant. Filled with anger, he cried loudly and refused to drink any milk. 3 days later, he died. His soul wandered aimlessly, but he couldn't forget about going to Guangku. After running for dozens of miles, he suddenly saw a chariot decorated with bird feathers approaching. Flags and banners covered the sky, and swords and spears stood in rows, blocking the road. Xi Fangping quickly crossed the road to avoid them, but he accidentally intruded on the procession and was caught by the horsemen. They tied him up and brought him to the front of the chariot. Looking up, Xi Fangping saw a young man sitting in the chariot, majestic and radiant. He asked Xi Fangping, "Who are you?" Filled with grievances and seeking justice, Xi Fangping thought that this young man must be a high-ranking official with the power to decide people's fates. He believed that perhaps this man could help him find justice for his sufferings. So, he narrated his agonizing experiences to the young man. The young man ordered his men to untie Xi Fangping and asked him to follow the procession. After a while, they arrived at a government office, where Xi Fangping's father, the surname Yang, and the constables were all present. Shortly after, a prisoner's cart arrived, and several convicts stepped out. Among them were Yama, the county magistrate, and the city god. A confrontation was immediately arranged, and every accusation Xi Fangping made was proven true. The 3 corrupt officials trembled in fear like frightened mice. The young man in the chariot, it turned out, was the 9th prince, a high-ranking deity. He greeted the officials, then turned to one of them and said, "This man is from the mortal realm. He intended to come to you for help in his case. You should address his grievances promptly." Xi Fangping learned that the young man in the chariot was the 9th prince of Jade Emperor, and the official he was addressing was Erlang. After these proceedings, Xi Fangping and his father were granted the privilege of returning home. Before departing, Erlang told Xi Fangping's father, "Your son is filial and righteous, and you yourself are kind-hearted and honest. I grant you an additional 36 years of life." They were then escorted home by the constables. Upon their return home, Xi Fangping copied down the verdict and shared it with his father. The next day, his father regained consciousness. They opened his father's coffin to find that the body remained stiff and cold. However, after waiting a day, the body gradually warmed and his father revived. When they wanted to find the copied verdict, it had vanished. From that day on, their family grew increasingly prosperous. The fields flourished, and their fortune multiplied. The descendants of the young family, on the other hand, dwindled, and their wealth and properties were gradually taken over by the Xi Fangping family. One of the villagers who had bought the young family's land had a dream one night in which a divine being reproached him, saying, "This is the property of the Xi Fangping family. How dare you occupy it?" Initially skeptical, the villager proceeded to sow the land, yet the harvest was meager. He had to sell the land back to the Xi Fangping family. Xi Fangping's father lived to a ripe old age of over 90 before passing away. It is said by the author of this unusual history, people often discuss the Pure Land, but they don't realize that life and death are separated by two worlds. Their thoughts are all confused. Moreover, if a person doesn't know the reason for coming into this world, how can they know the reason for leaving it? And what about dying again after death? Or living again after life? Loyalty and filial piety remain unchanging through countless generations. How marvelous is Xi Fangping? How truly great he is.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.